Story number 1. The night I heard footsteps. The weekend was meant to go as planned. Because they were taking an anniversary trip out of town, I was alone in the house for the first time. Prior to turning 18, I had been by myself before, but never for a long time. There was never anything strange going on in our neighborhood. It made me feel safe. I ordered pizza, put on a scary movie, and sat down on the couch on Friday night. Except for the TV, the house was very quiet. The odd creak of the floorboards or groan of the old pipes didn't seem to bother anyone. But as the night wore on, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. I didn't feel uncomfortable because of a noise. It was more like a sense that I was being watched. Around midnight, I heard it for the first time. Steps. Just a few, but heavy and intentional, coming from upstairs. I stopped the movie and strained to listen. Silence. I thought, maybe I was making it up. I brushed it off and kept watching. Then it happened again. This time it was clearer. Slow, steady footsteps going from one end of the hallway to the other. My heart was pounding as I turned the TV off. Someone was upstairs. As I crept toward the stairs, I grabbed the nearest object, a kitchen knife, my hand shaking. On the other hand, my phone was already calling 911. I knew I locked the doors. I knew no one was supposed to be here but me. The footsteps stopped as soon as I reached the bottom of the stairs. I stood there, frozen, looking up into the darkness. The cops answered my call.
Hi, this is 911 emergency. How can I help you today?
But I felt like I couldn't speak. Finally, I forced myself to say, I think someone's in my house. They told me to stay on the line and stay hidden, but I didn't listen. I started up the stairs one step at a time, my breath shallow and my skin cold with fear. I needed to know who or what was up there. I reached the landing and flicked on the hallway light. Nothing. The hallway was empty, but the sounds had been real, hadn't they? I checked the bathroom, my parents' room, and finally my bedroom. Everything was clean. There were no signs of anyone hidden or anything out of place. I almost felt relieved until I heard the footsteps again. They were right behind me and they were running. I whipped around, expecting to see someone, anyone, but the hallway was still empty. Panic filled me. I bolted down the stairs, almost tripping over my own feet, and locked myself in the kitchen. The footsteps continued above me, faster, more frantic, as if they were looking for something, or someone. The cops arrived a few minutes later. They searched the entire house, every room, every closet. Nothing. They told me it was probably my mind. Or maybe the house was settling. But I knew what I heard. I wasn't alone that night. It wasn't until days later that something clicked in my mind, something I had forgotten in the haze of fear that night. I had decided earlier that evening to make a video of myself watching the horror movie for fun, just a casual recording to share with my friends later. But in the chaos that followed, I completely forgot about it. Then it hit me. The camera. When I rushed to the kitchen to grab the knife, I'd left the camera running right there, facing the staircase. I had never checked the footage. Not that night, not the next day. Until now. Curiosity and dread churned in my stomach as I sat down to watch the recording. My hands trembled as I hit play. Guess what I saw? This. Story number 2. The woman in the window. My parents had gone to visit my grandma in the hospital, leaving me home alone for the weekend. It wasn't the first time, and I wasn't scared. In fact, I kind of liked having the house to myself. Time to relax, binge watch shows, and not think about anyone else. It was late Friday evening and I was getting ready to make food. Our kitchen has a big window that looks out into the backyard, and I always kept the blinds open because I liked the view of the trees moving in the wind. As I chopped veggies, I glanced up and saw her. A woman standing at the edge of the yard looking straight at me through the window. She was pale, with long black hair that seemed to move even though there was no breeze. Her clothes were old-fashioned, almost like something out of the 1800s, a long, torn dress. Her face was wrong. It was gaunt, her eyes hollow, and her mouth was twisted in an awkward, too-wide smile. I froze, the knife slipping from my hand and clattering onto the counter. My heart raced as I tried to understand what I was seeing. Who was she? How did she get into my backyard? I blinked and she was gone, just like that. I rushed to the back door, checking the locks and making sure everything was safe. The rational part of my brain told me I was just seeing things. Maybe I'd been watching too many scary flicks, but deep down, I knew what I saw was real. The rest of the night, I couldn't stop thinking about her. I kept looking through the blinds, expecting to see her standing there again, but she never returned. Until Saturday. It was around noon, and I was doing clothes in the basement. The basement window is small, but it looks out into the lawn. I bent down to pick up a basket of clothes, and as I stood up, I saw her again. The same woman standing just outside the window looking down at me with that awful grin. My body went cold. She was closer this time. Her face was just inches from the glass. I screamed and backed away, tripping over the laundry basket and falling to the floor. When I looked again, she was gone. I didn't stay in the basement. I ran upstairs and locked myself in my room, my heart beating in my ears. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't call the cops and tell them a ghost was stalking me. They'd think I was crazy. That night I didn't sleep. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind sent my mind into speed. I kept checking the windows, expecting to see her face looking back at me. On Sunday morning, my parents came home. I tried to tell them about the woman, but they just laughed it off, saying I probably dreamed it. But I know she was real. I still see her sometimes, standing at the edge of the yard, watching. Story number 3, The Voice in the Vents. It happened last winter. My parents had gone to a wedding, leaving me alone in our big old house. It's the kind of house that makes noises, creaks and groans, the wind roaring through cracks. But I'd grown up here, so I was used to it. When I heard it that night, I was lying in bed looking through my phone. A voice, faint but distinct, coming from the vents in the roof. At first I thought it was the TV in the living room, maybe left on by accident. I got up and checked. Nothing. The house was completely quiet. I shrugged it off and went back to my room, but the voice came again. This time it was clearer. It was a man's voice whispering my name.
Sarah.
My blood ran cold. I knew I was alone. I ran through every possible reason in my head. Maybe someone outside, possibly a neighbor. However, the sound came from inside the house. The vents are inside. I climbed onto my bed, my ears inches from the vent, and listened.
Sarah. Come. Find me.
I felt frozen with fear. I wanted to run, to scream, but I couldn't move. My body was frozen, every muscle locked in place, as the voice continued, mumbling, mocking. I grabbed my phone and called my dad. I couldn't tell him what was happening. How could I explain that there was a voice in the vents? But I asked him to come home. He told me it was probably just the wind or the old house settling and I should try to sleep. But how could I sleep when something was in the house with me? For the rest of the night, I lay in bed listening to the voice. It never stopped. It kept saying my name, getting louder and more demanding.
Sarah. Come. Find me.
I never found out what it was. The next morning, the voice was gone. and I never heard it again. But I know what I heard.
Find me.
Something was in the house that night, and I wanted to come find it. And I never want to know what would have happened if I did. These are the kinds of stories that stay with you long after the night is over and the lights come back on. They remind us that sometimes, when we're home alone, we might not be as alone as we think. These stories leave us with an unsettling question. When you're home alone and hear a strange sound, a voice, or see something out of place, how can you ever be sure that you're truly alone? Is it your mind playing tricks on you? Or is there something, or someone, waiting, just out of sight, watching and waiting for the right moment? What if the next time you hear those footsteps, see a shadow move, or feel the eerie chill of being watched, it's real? Would you be brave enough to find out?